Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks for having us, Lindsay.
Welcome to the last installment of Zoom with the candidates. And I want to really thank you guys for coming. I know that you probably have lots of family things going on, and I personally am feeling a little rough because I ate way too much for supper and then had a piece of pie after. So I have a tummy ache, to be honest with you. I want to introduce who we have with us. Paul Gray Hemsing.
Hello.
Nicholas Martin.
Hey, everybody.
And Allison Knodel.
Hi, everyone. No, I'm having issues with my username, but I am Allison Knodel.
Thank you guys all for coming. And I'm just going to say a little bit about my platform, and then I'll give you each a chance to say your background and a little bit about your platform as well before we get into questions. My name is Lindsay Clark, and I'm running for mayor. I have been working for the solicitor's department at the city. That's a type of lawyer. For the last 4.5 years before this year when I decided to take an unpaid leave of absence to run for mayor. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I really care deeply for this community. I grew up here before I went off to university. And over the last couple of years, I've noticed that the council has kind of been drifting away from what I understand as this community's values and the values of the community that I want to live in. I have a lot of platform points, but I'm going to go over kind of the overarching pillars of my platform. So I want council that uses evidence to make decisions and uses public participation as part of their decision-making process to keep open communication with the community, both when making decisions and when after those decisions are made, to communicate with the public about why the decision was made, what decision was made, and do long-term planning. So as a community, we're going to be here for a while, and we should be planning as though we're going to be here for a while. So looking 10, 20, 30, 50 years into the future to figure out where we want to be, what we want our infrastructure to look like, what kind of community do we want in terms of like services and facilities. And part of that will again be discussing with our community and trying to figure out what our community goals are, and then prioritizing those goals. So obviously we can't afford to have everything always, but we need to have our clear priorities. So it makes it easier for us to sort through what our spends should be. If it's number 1 on the priority list, obviously we're going to spend money on it. If it's number 10, we're going to be able to say, well, if we do that, then we're 3, 4, and 5 are out. So we have to really think carefully about whether this is a spend we want to make. And then I'll say transparency and accountability as one group, even though they're 2 separate ones on my platform. These are just aspects of good governance. So good governance is one of those things that it's easy to forget to maintain. It's so critical to effective democracy and effective government, but it's one of those things, like I'll tell a person I know just recently told me that she just changed her furnace filter, and I was like, well, you've been living there for like 10 years. Is this the first time you changed your furnace filter? And those are like the little things that you have to do all the time. It's just a regular maintenance thing, but it's so important to maintain the health of your house and make sure that your furnace doesn't break down earlier than it should. And that's good governance. So accountability is part of good governance, and then you have transparency and public participation are all aspects of good governance. And so transparency is two-way street. So while public participation is a two-way street, we have to be transparent and open as a city government with our community. And then our community is responsible for giving us feedback and making sure that they hold us accountable to the decisions that we're making. Obviously, this election is one of the best known ways of holding your government accountable. And so that's where we're hoping that people really think carefully about the decision that's before them in the election booth. Are they booths? I don't know. Maybe it's just like a curtain. I don't know, but you'll see when you get there.
It's cardboard.
Cardboard?
Yep.
And then I'll do compassion or collaboration and caring are two of my two final pillars. And this is so important right now. It's always important, but we have a mental health crisis, and we have lots of people in our city struggling with substance use. And so it's really important for us as a city. It's not our jurisdiction. Healthcare isn't our jurisdiction, but municipalities are where the consequences of these issues are felt most acutely in our families, in our neighborhoods, and our city as a whole. And so we need to collaborate with our municipal government, our services within the city, and even to a certain extent with other municipalities to find out, what are you doing? What's been working for you? And we have an awesome network of community services right here in Medicine Hat that have done excellent work on these two issues, as well as homelessness. And so we need to, as a city, show leadership in these areas and make it known that we care about everyone in our community and that we want our city to be a livable and wonderful place that everyone can enjoy, that everyone feels a part of and feels like they belong to. And I think we will all benefit from that. When you have a community where everyone feels welcome and like they belong, everyone's happier, and you have a stronger workforce and you have stronger businesses. So that's briefly my platform. If you want to know more about my platform, you can check it out on my website, www.clarkformayor.ca, all spelled out as words. Okay, so over to you, Allison. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sounds good. So thank you everyone for being here today. I'm really excited to see so many usernames on the screen. My name is Allison Knodel. I teach high school here in Medicine Hat. I teach psychology and digital arts. And I was fortunate to be elected to student leadership at the Students Association in Medicine Hat College. So I served 2 terms as VP External, which was the Vice President of External Communications. So that was a portfolio that dealt with internal events like clubs and other capacity building within the college, but also building relationships with external entities like businesses in town and so on. So that gave me a bit of experience learning reading policy and how governance works and just meeting norms. And I loved it. I thought it was I mean, maybe that's not normal, but I loved it. And I really enjoy people. So I got to meet people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And it was a really positive experience. So I am in my 5th year of teaching now. I graduated a little bit later, took some time throughout my 20s to figure myself out. And now I teach, and I've been very heavily involved in my school community and have kind of tapped out all of the different hats that I can wear as a teacher. And I've been itching to get involved in the greater community of Medicine Hat. So this was a natural fit for me. And I was strongly encouraged to do it by my family and friends. So my platform is 5 points. The first one is I have a lot of, as Lindsay's talking, I've got a lot of overlapping values, which is very nice. And I think many of us actually do. But my first point is to increase engagement in the community. And that looks like one thing that I've observed from our current staff and council, and it's getting a lot better, is just the opportunities to participate in the city in whatever jurisdiction it may be, whether that's the Parks and Rec Master Plan or the city development plans, things like that, is that people often don't know that there's these opportunities for them to participate. And I think that I enjoy through teaching digital arts and having a little bit of an experience with marketing through my own little side business, we could do a lot better marketing ourselves even within our community. Externally is another thing and another point to discuss, but we can do a better job connecting people with what's going on by just being better at marketing. And there's many ways that the city is doing that now that has improved, but I think we can even do better. And Lindsay and I have chatted in the past about town halls and what we're doing here right now. This is not out of reach, and we should constantly be engaging our public, because the best city is one where everyone has a say. I found a mission and vision statement, and that's my next point, is to create a mission and vision statement built with everyone in mind, and it's from Portland, Oregon. And it's all about using the voices of the people in the community to build the future. And I think that's something that's missing. And then the third point is making sure when we're building neighborhoods or developments, I know one that's on everyone's radar right now is Buck Springs Business Park. How can we build those areas or those neighborhoods to make it so people feel connected, to feel healthy, creative, and to increase environmental sustainability? So those are the 4 key points that I want a neighborhood to consider. So that's the third one. And I'm just going to go through these quickly so everyone has a chance to speak. But the fourth one is increasing harm reduction in our downtown core and in the city in general. So harm reduction in a nutshell is to basically say to a person, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of their substance use, regardless of their mental health, I see you, I accept you, let's get you the services you need. And it doesn't just mean safe injection site. That's one tool that lives within the realm of harm reduction. But it could mean using safe injection sites as a platform to allow people to access resources like counseling or like getting them sober. You use that as a doorway to connecting people with resources they need, and trauma-informed practice as well. So at the core of harm reduction is this belief that people who have these social emotional problems or adverse social behavior typically have a history of trauma in their lives. So knowing that that's at the core of a lot of socially adverse behavior, and then building capacity with community groups, because we've got amazing community groups doing great things. So let's use the tools that we have as a community to support people in those areas. And then the fifth one is social and economic recovery after COVID. So as Lindsay said, we are in a mental health crisis. We need to be aware of preventative measures that will help protect us from what we've gone through in the last year and a half. And we also need to be spending our money wisely so that we can take care of people. And I think that if we focus on the needs of people and prioritize our spending, then we can actually start building on what we've got. And those are just general statements. I've got more specifics, but that's just the general concept. So those are my 5 points.
All right. Thank you, Allison.
Yes.
Paul, over to you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for allowing us, Lindsay. And thank you, everyone who's here to hear about some new, vibrant people that really want to make changes in our community. I'm a simple farm kid that grew up in Rolling Hills, Alberta. And that is where I learned the value of hard work, innovation, ingenuity. As a small farming family, everyone had to chip in and everyone had to do their piece. And I think that's what gave me my backbone of creating my own business plan over the last 30 years. So I do have 30 years of business experience. Sometimes I managed up to over 20 staff at one time. And that was in the beauty industry. My job has come a little bit to a close as I'm just very part-time because I unfortunately fell victim to COVID this year, even after having an immunization. Put me on to 39 days of life support and a very lengthy recovery. I'm actually just 3 months since I was actually completely paralyzed in a bed. So I would like to think that it's my strength and determination and hard work that got me to be in a place where I could run for this election. I'm very grateful for that. I believe my gift and what I have to bring to council is that I have a passion of being of service and support to people. And I think that's something that we have been focusing less on in council and been more about big business, some big blunders, unfortunately, put all of our time into council put their time into really reaching for the stars, and unfortunately we didn't quite get there. And in the process, the COVID epidemic has happened, pandemic, and we are now left with even greater social problems. I think it's a wonderful time for us to create vibrancy, support, and innovative change in our community. I think another big problem and the reason why people are using the change word so much right now is because people crave to be heard and understood. They do not want to be demeaned or dismissed. And I hear over and over and over that people do feel demeaned, they do feel dismissed, they do feel disconnected from their government. And I think we really need to address that, and we need to take to heart that we are representing 63,000 people, not all of which are voters, but that's our community. We need to take care of them and we need to listen. My platform is highly on the social end because of the times that we're in. And I think that we really do need to take into account that trauma, past trauma, and the trauma of the pandemic has caused much greater mental health problems, has caused a lot more dependence on drugs and alcohol. And we need to address that. I know that in the past, Medicine Hat has not embraced having a safe injection site or having those kind of resources available. And I actually think it's a priority. I think it's something that we need to step up to the plate and make sure that we're taking care of humans, because at the end of the day, we take care of our animals better than some people are being taken care of in our city. And just because, you know, they're unfortunately in a situation that is not the same as our journey, we could all be there too, or one of our family members. So we need to take care of them. I'm also very concerned about business. And as a business person in 30 years, as a small business person, I felt often that we were not recognized, because if you weren't a big business, you weren't really helped out. There was no programs, there was nothing to really help out unless you were in the downtown core. There was some money to help them out down there a little bit, but the rest of people were sort of left alone. And I kind of did some number crunching and I thought, you know, we gave $6 million to Aurora Cannabis to create a bunch of jobs. And I thought, you know, if we gave 100 small businesses that applied for a grant $60,000 each, that's $6 million. And those 100 businesses would likely employ 1 or 2 more people because of that investment. And we suddenly have 200 new jobs. And that is just as important as the promise of 400 jobs from Aurora that will never come to be. I think I'll stop talking because I'm probably taking up too much time.
Oh, that's perfect, Paul. You were right on time there.
Okay.
I do want to pick up on that a little bit. The contrast between in economic development of making these big bets versus the recognition that most jobs are created by existing businesses
Absolutely.
and how important it is to, of course, we want new industry to come and new business to come here. And there are ways to do that. A long-term strategy is obviously necessary, but the value of just making sure that your existing businesses are successful is often undervalued. So we'll go over to you now, Nicholas.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to be quick here. My name is Nicholas Martin. I grew up here. I'm a power engineer by trade. I went to Medicine Hat College. I worked in town for about 5 years before I started doing consulting projects up north. I was in Fort McMurray 2016 when the fire hit. And like a dummy, we tried to get through the city in our work truck from the north, and we got stuck in the city with a whole bunch of other vehicles. And after that, I went and I built that, or I commissioned that NWR refinery up by Edmonton there in the Fort Saskatchewan area. If I lose this election, I'm going to try to build that new Dow facility that they just announced. That's really exciting, actually. I thought that was really cool. I saved up enough money as a consultant to pay myself $20,000 to $30,000 a year to pursue a career in public service. So I spend most of my time educating myself. That's what I do. That's my identity. That's my existence. I'm running mostly on a platform to get a university built here because I do not see this city existing in 100 years if we don't have good, strong stewardship. The entire Great Plains in North America is depopulating. That has been happening for decades. Refugees that the government places here move to Calgary as quick as they can. Like, this place isn't even good enough for refugees. And can you blame them? Like, the economic opportunity is just way better for your family in Calgary. You can't really blame anyone for moving. So I think to address that and to address the city's tax burden and to address just the tax burden and the growth, really, we need the workforce of the future. We need to attract capital to move into the city. We can't exist as a city of just service industries. That's not feasible for the long term. We need data scientists, we need statisticians, we need programmers, we need engineers, we need people who investors want to hire, and we need them here all the time. Yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell. If you want to hear more, go to my website, nicholasmartin.ca.
So Nicholas, one of the things you mentioned there was that you feel like we don't have people are leaving because we don't have the existing industry and jobs here. One interesting thing about that is that people here are having trouble finding work, but at the same time, the industries we do have tech industry and we produce carbon black here and Methanex, CF, Goodyear, etc. On and on and on. I'm sure I missed like loads and loads, but they're having trouble finding workers. So there does seem to be a bit of a disconnect in terms of what our workforce is and what our businesses need in terms of a workforce. So I know that you're thinking about a university, but what could you do maybe just to work, because we do have a college and they do offer degree programs. Do you see the college playing a role in bridging that gap?
Yes, likely, absolutely. That's not my first choice. I think Medicine Hat deserves better, and that's what I'm going to fight for. I understand I'm probably trying to get blood from a stone with a Jason Kenney government in the middle of a pandemic, but hopefully that'll turn around in a couple of years here. The college has nursing program and it has teaching program. I'm not sure if they offer any other degrees right now that you can get fully in Medicine Hat, but the college, just like those businesses, the college has problem getting students because for the most part, who wants to come to Medicine Hat to the middle of nowhere to get half an education? It's a hard sell. It's a hard sell for anyone. We really need to work to make this city more attractive for everybody, not just the retirement community.
Okay, so Nicholas, you still have 1 minute left, so I'm going to ask you
sure.
another follow-up.
Great.
So you live here and your family. Why do you like living here?
You know, if I'm being completely honest, it's because my family's here. I mean, we probably would have moved to America. My wife is American. We would probably be down in America somewhere right now if it wasn't for family concerns. When my wife first moved up here, it was because I had earning potential here that she didn't down there. But we could flip around and do the same process we did up here now and live in a place where, you have 10 giant cities within a couple hours of you if you move out, even just to the Toronto area.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna do a quick round, a quick surprise round. Since it's Thanksgiving,
Oh yes, it's
want-
also World Mental Health Day. Nobody mentioned that.
that's true. Good call, Nicholas. I want to hear what you guys are all thankful for this year. Allison, let's do we'll just do a quick round.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Allison's muted and Rachel has to unmute you. So I'm gonna, oh, there you go.
I'm good. I said, the host is not allowing me to unmute myself. And then I went, okay. So I am grateful for, and it's so simple, but I'm grateful for my house, the fact that I live in a community where as a 30-year-old, the bank owns my house, but that I can, I can have a mortgage and I can have a partner who works a normal wage and goes to school, and we can still live in a home. And I am thankful for my dogs.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah.
How about you, Paul?
Well, I would have to say this year, my thankfulness goes completely to my family and friends who supported and helped me through definitely the scariest year of my life. So having survived and, coding twice, and I was supposed to check out and I didn't. So
Too stubborn.
Having so many people and people in the community that helped us to get through that time was like absolutely mind-blowing. So I'm thankful for all of that. My husband, my children, my parents, my friends, everyone.
How about you, Nicholas?
I'm thankful right now for my health and the health of my family, not just because of the pandemic. My mother had a fall recently, so that's just kind of a scary thing to happen. But everybody's healthy. We had our first child in the middle of the pandemic last April, and he's healthy, he's happy, he's cute as heck. So definitely thankful for little Charlie.
Yeah, that sounds great. New babies. So fun.
What about you, Lindsay?
Thanks, Allison. Well, I kind of would copy the family and friends one. Absolutely being able to afford a place to live. Having worked 10 years in Vancouver, it's very different there than it is here. And so I have like a lovely house and my family and friends, and you just realize how important they are when, you are doing something like this and your life is kind of bananas for a little while and they don't like abandon you. You don't have as much time to invest and they're still there for you and giving 110% to make you feel supported and loved. And that's just, I treasure that so much. So that's probably what I'm thankful for. So Allison, what was your top concern that as a citizen that drove you to want to run for council? And do you have any specifics on how you would lead to resolve it?
So I love living here, and as a fairly introverted person, I find that my needs are met fairly easily without a lot of struggle. But I know that my age group in particular often leaves the community for bigger and better. And I often hear the complaint, and have since I was out of high school, there's nothing for me here. And I think that I want people to love it here as much as I do. And I think that I think we can do that pretty easily. And a lot of it is just making sure that one of my first campaign point is increasing that engagement and then using the information and the data that we gather to make a plan for the future. So if we never listen to what people want, especially our younger demographic that often is off the radar, if we don't listen to them, we're never going to be able to, our physical space will never look like they imagine, and our culture will never look like they feel it should. So I think what we need to do is make sure we're listening to younger demographic, and maybe just focus on that for a little while. We, of course, seniors and all ages are important. This is not me dismissing other ages in the community. This is me saying there's a career age demographic that doesn't have enough focused attention. And let's use the data we gather from that age group to start building the city physically in a way that reflects the culture that they want to see. And then using benchmarks and feedback from that group to say, okay, how do you feel about the community now that it's 2 years from that time that you gave data? Or even like we could do that with the Parks and Rec master plan. Okay, we've made some changes, let's reflect on that. So for if we made some physical space changes, how do you feel about 3rd Street right now? Is that what you want to see in our community? And then revise, reflect and revise and repeat. So yeah, definitely that sense of, I want to leave the community, I'm young, there's nothing for me here, or I'm a young family, there's nothing for my children here. What do we need to do to fix that? And then start reflecting on the decisions that we've made. Okay, is this good enough? What do you think about that? And never stopping that process, because we can't guess what people are feeling unless we ask them. And so that gathering data from the get-go needs to continue. And that's expensive work, but it needs to happen. If we want a city that people feel like is theirs and has their best interest in mind, we need to continue to ask them if they're happy or not.
So Allison, how would you ask, or what would you do to get that demographic interested in giving their answers? I think we have a bit of a reputation maybe of asking questions and then, like compiling the answers and putting it on a shelf somewhere, or at least that's the perception. So how would you get people to, want to contribute?
Yeah, it's actually a huge struggle to get people to participate in data collection in general. Surveys, it's hard to get people involved. So I think one thing that I'm noticing that the city's doing better at is social media and just posting to Facebook. If you want to know where most 20 to 30 somethings are, they're mostly on Instagram and Facebook, and sometimes Snapchat, and sometimes Twitter. So if you make it, I honestly think it has to be really easy. It has to be right in front of their face, and it has to be like quick. So one question at a time, right? Like we could do it one question at a time, make it Instagrammable. So if it's out in the community, make that participation and giving feedback. There's a term called guerrilla marketing, where you take that opportunity to participate, you make it so that it's right at their feet. Tourism Medicine Hat did a really good job with my medicine hat, something like that. My medicine hat summer, and they got Boylan Imaging to like iron guerrilla marketing into the community. So you make it, we could call it gamification, where you make it a game to participate. You make it so you can Instagram it or social media it. You make it so it's immersive and it's trendy. You have to make it cute. You have to make it fun. If you don't, people don't care. We are inundated with information. Yeah, I want to see like bus terminals have plants at them and things like that. We have to make it prettier.
Yeah, so I like the idea of gamification because it in itself is interactive and you can see the results of your input immediately. Yeah. So that kind of overcomes a little bit of the barrier I was talking about. Do either Nicholas or Paul, do you have any thoughts on that? You don't have to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think I'd just like to add that we can get data not even from people directly. We can get big data from cell phone providers and see where young people are going and when and what is attracting them. And lots of times people, they'll be wishy-washy over whether they'd attend an event or not. You can get actual hard data on who is going where, when, and use that instead. And it's a lot cheaper than the traditional survey collecting methods as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Allison, I could share some articles with you if you'd like to take a look.
Sure. Paul, if you want to take that one, that's good. Otherwise, I would like to know what you're attracted to in terms of getting involved. Like what is made before, like in your life, what types of activities or types of things make you want to contribute your input into public policy?
Well, I intend to probably live the remainder of my life here. My retired parents are living in Medicine Hat. My children are living in Medicine Hat. And I think if we don't make some change and make it a favorable place to be excited to live for all age groups, we're failing our city. So I guess I really would like to be, if I'm lucky enough to get elected, be on the Public Service Committee, because all that it embraces and the entire gamut of it is exactly what I like to do. I like to be of service to people. I think I hear all the time, you know, people say there's nothing here for us to do for with our kids. There's nothing for teenagers. There's nothing for young people. There's nothing for seniors. Like, it doesn't matter what age group they are. Everyone's saying there's nothing here for them. And yet I look at what there's here to do, and I think I don't have enough days in the month to even do half of what I wish I could do here. So there's definitely a disconnect there, you know. So we need to know exactly, seniors, what are you missing? Exactly, middle-aged people, what are you missing? Exactly, families, what are you missing? You know, and kids, like, and young people, like, where are we lacking? What are they actually wanting? And that's about being in communication with the public. So
I
yeah.
really agree with that. And I do think that there's a perception of Medicine Hat that a lot of people have, and then a reality. Like, I think a lot of people don't know what we already have to offer, which I think is what you're saying. And then that kind of comes back to what Nicholas and Allison were saying about advertising a little bit more. How do you get people to, you know, understand or to get the information that they need to have a fun life in Medicine Hat? So I'm going to follow up to, there was a question on the chat. What are your thoughts about what we can do to bring more things in for families, as many families are moving away from Medicine Hat because there isn't stuff for their kids to do? So that kind of comes back to what you were saying about, well, first of all, we need to know what families want to do. What do kids want to do? What are they doing and what's missing? But do you want to expand on that at all, Paul?
Well, I think that's what we need to do, is we need to collect that data. We need people to approach us. We need to be approachable, you know, so that they feel embraced and they want to approach. And I do agree with Allison when she said that these decisions, when people want to tell you something, they want it to be done quickly because they've got a million other things to do. So someone just wants to fire you off a quick email or something on a Facebook post and just say, I want more swimming pools, or whatever it is that they say. And that's all the engagement they want. You know,
Paul,
if they don't really want to come to
interrupt you?
10 meetings.
What you said about we need to be engaged, like we need to be approachable, I think they'll take the time if they feel like they're being heard, if that makes sense. I think that
they
that's
might,
key.
some people might take the time, but a lot of people just want to say, like, hey, I want water slides. I want, you know, whatever it is in particular that's of value to them. I know, you know, some seniors have reached out and said, like, we want floor curling. There's nowhere for us to do it. You know, everyone's so involved and wanting to take care of the pickleballers. Well, what about us, you know? So it's listening and taking those and seeing what we can actually help with. Because that's what the public asks me about. Every email that I get, it's about lack of services and lack of communication and feeling kind of left out.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. That is really true. And I feel like we need to, once again, like you talked about growing up in a small town and or on a farm, and that community engagement and community spirit. If you look at some of the stuff that we have here in terms of like groups, like the pickleball is a good one, skateboarding is a good one. They form their own group and then they advocate on behalf of their group, and they get stuff done on their own. Like, they're not even necessarily always coming to the city for help. They're just getting stuff done on their own. So, you know, definitely engaging with those groups as well, and encouraging people to, you know, find the people doing what they want to do and figure out what we can do together to improve the recreation or clubs or card games, whatever people are wanting to do, so that, you know, we're working with our community instead of at them, or like without considering what they actually want. So great answer. And I think it's Nicholas's turn.
I'm just answering a quick question in the chat quickly.
Oh, okay. Good for you. So Nicholas, how would you make sure that all citizens in Medicine Hat are represented, not just the ones that conform with your ideology?
Sure. So I've said many times in this campaign, as it's come up multiple times, that I'm a progressive conservative. I've been a progressive conservative my whole life. So I've got to see people take my party away from me twice in my lifetime now. But I like to say, a little tongue in cheek, that I'm a progressive because I'm not a liberal, and I'm a conservative because I'm not an idiot. Now I'll take my tongue out of my cheek and I'll get a little more specific. Where a traditional progressive and a progressive conservative digress is on matters of economics, foreign policy, equality, and the role of the state in society. A traditional progressive recoils when I say, quite seriously, that the economy has to come first. You only need to study history for a short time before you notice that any sort of turmoil in a society, whether that's economic, social, military, climate-based, or political, it impedes progress. It absolutely impedes progress. So now that I've explained that a bit, I'm going to address the question. My political ideology is just a representation of my values and priorities. And I'm not only going to use those values and priorities to work for all of the citizens in Medicine Hat, but for those who lived and died here and for those who have yet to come.
Okay. And how do you propose doing that? And it's not even, I guess ideology is very specific, and I maybe apologize for using that word, but
sure.
So your interests are, wanting a university, but maybe there's other people who think, well, we need to really work with our college to make sure that, you know, we're doing the applied research that our city needs and using that to attract new young people into our city. And so how would you approach that, where there's those different views?
The core of democracy is compromise, right? It's even if you have like a small provincial cabinet, say of 18 conservatives, those 18 people aren't going to agree on everything, let alone how to approach every issue. They look like they all agree on everything when they're in public, but in those caucus meetings, they're red-faced and yelling at each other because they have very different opinions on the best way to approach every problem. And I assume council is going to be the exact same. I'm going to assume that I'm not going to have the best, rightest, smartest plan at all times. And I hope really that we elect a council that'll work together like that.
Well, I would suggest that red-faced yelling is not the best approach, but I don't think you were suggesting that either.
No. It's a bit of hyperbole.
Paul, there's a question in the feed here, and I'm gonna throw it to you because you brought up the Public Services Committee and wanting to be on that. So why do you think there are so many Energy Committee meetings that are behind closed doors? What could they be discussing?
Oh boy, you've picked the thing that I'm the least interested in.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, I don't know. I honestly can't answer that. But what I can say is there's been a lot of talk about the in-camera meetings. Does there need to be that much of it? And the public is honestly demanding that they get to know more and they get to see more as it's happening. They want to know why these decisions are being made. And they want to know how we come to these decisions of like, how did you get there? What path did you take? You know, what statistics did you see? What studies did you do? Did you,
Totally.
Did you find out, like, let's take an example. So everyone's up in arms, please don't sell our power plant. Well, when I investigated, I found out that we have 2 power plants. I didn't know that. So we have two. So I don't know if the city's talking about selling two power plants or one. They both burn fossil fuels. How much longer can we burn those fossil fuels with the carbon tax raising every year with our federal government? At what point is there a breaking point? And you look back to our history.
Yeah, I don't think the
Like-
cost of energy is going down.
Exactly. So like in 2010, if the city had chosen to sell all of their oil and gas reserves, we would probably be in a much better financial situation today. But you can't predict the future. But I think we can predict the future with burning fossil fuels. It's not going to end well for our power plant. So I want to know the numbers. I want to see people that know, because I don't know. I don't understand how the power plant works. I know what they burn, and I know we get electricity from it. But we need to find out the numbers. How much do we make off of that? Is it keeping our utilities lower because we own it? Or is it actually going to get to a tipping point where we're no longer able to save utilities and we're left with this responsibility? So.
Okay, yeah, I think kind of comes back to that long-term planning. So we need to do the long-term planning with respect to what is a transition period for electricity or energy, but also not thinking we know everything and making sure that we receive the expert advice that as a council, the council needs. And then of course, being open and transparent with something that would be really a game-changing historical decision for our city. Nicholas and Allison, do you have anything else to add on that?
I will go. So I spent an hour on the phone with a former power plant operator this morning because I was interested in what's actually going on. What does it feel like to be a staff member in that space, especially when there's these conversations that we could be selling, or, you know, like that's on the table in general. I don't know. I can only imagine. Yeah, I mean, he's retired now, so it's not directly affecting him, but his retirement came quicker because of a change of leadership style, and a change in leadership style that I think if you talk to anyone that's in either a manager role or within the city itself, or is serving a manager, working underneath a manager, there seems to be, unfortunately, a very top-down management style, and a top-down management style that's affecting this desire to be perceived a particular way as an organization. And I think a lot of these behind closed door meetings are coming from this desire to have control over the perception of the organization. And I mean, I'm only saying that because this is what I'm hearing over and over again, is as a staff, there's very little room for asking questions, very little room for, encouraging future thinking, right? Like it's all top down. So I think that if the question is, why are these behind closed doors? I think a lot of it is that they're not willing to, if they want to make change, they're not willing to be questioned. They're not willing to have conversation. And it just seems, it's a culture thing. I'm not saying that.
I agree with you, Allison. Can I interject for one quick second?
Yes, please do.
Being part of the community in a way that we're one-on-one with our business, the people that we do business with, we're one-on-one with them for an hour, 2 hours. And many of those employees are actually within the city. And I have heard, since I've announced that I'm running, numerous exactly what you're saying, where people are feeling that the culture of where they're working, they're not loving their job. And the reason they're not loving it is because they do feel that they're being pressured from above, and you will just obey and do what needs to be done. And what I said to one of these people was, I know that your area of expertise is XYZ because you've worked in that for 15, 20 years. And as a council person, I want to be able to come to you and say, what do you think about XYZ? Because you're working in there. I can't even start to think that I know better than you. right? And then how do you feel working there? How have you been managed? Have you been happy with that process? And unfortunately, I'm hearing over and over that they aren't.
Well, and I think, unfortunately, when the power of council is turned over to staff in certain circumstances, council doesn't have the ability to say this needs to change.
Yes,
So
we should be able
there's
to.
that's another general issue.
Yep.
So Nicholas, sorry, Paul, Nicholas, do you have anything you wanted to add on this topic?
No, I'm not going to speculate on what goes on behind closed doors, but if I could grab my whiteboard if we want to do a power plant lesson.
Yeah, that's true. You're bailiwick. I would suspect it's a combination of issues. I think you guys have raised some really pertinent points, and I think a little bit there's, again, that culture of fear of, well, I don't want to ask a stupid question in public, or this idea that debate is somehow bad. That kind of comes back to what Nicholas was saying as well. Like, it's totally cool not to agree and to publicly disagree, as long as you're doing that in an open and respectful way and genuinely trying to understand the position of the person that you're disagreeing with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's healthy. That's how we get to the best possible decisions. It removes,
or at least a decision we all agree is better.
Yeah, and it removes that echo chamber thinking, which, I mean, kind of wanted to touch on the Facebook whistleblower briefly, but that's how, when you have just that repeated reflection of your own view back at you, you kind of can legitimately feel like, wow, I'm right about everything. And we never are, right? So we're kind of running short on time. I'm going to try and get to one more question, but we'll have to do quick, like 1 minute answers, if that's okay. What are your plans if you don't get elected? Just continue serving the city or contributing to the public discourse? Allison.
So I think that I'm already involved in many different ways in the city, and I won't stop. I've actually had that thought about other council people that are running. I'm like, please don't stop participating, because you have this asset that I don't want to see go away. So I would love to be, if I am allowed, I would love to be engaged with the council that is elected and act as I would like to ask questions. And if I can get involved in a way that works for them and works for me and works for the community, I'm all in. That's just my nature. Yes,
you are allowed. Paul.
Well, I am getting elected, so no, I'm kidding. If I am not elected, I certainly am going to advocate for the vulnerable. I think that that's one of my number one things, is to help the homeless, the vulnerable people, that are needing help the most. So I would certainly be advocating for that, and some societies that are helping for that, for harm reduction and help with addictions, etc. And then also I would probably, I'm be very, very interested in helping with the food bank, because with their brand new building, they're going to need a lot of extra help and getting things going. And they're actually talking about having kitchens in there so that you can actually teach people how to make use of their food that they have, because a lot of people just don't know how to use the food. And I love to cook, so I think that would be a great fit.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Nicholas, you already answered this in the chat, but do you want to give it?
Yeah, sure. So 3 things. I would try to continue on with the university anyway. I would approach the new council and see if they want to move forward with that. Second, next year, I'm going to try to be a delegate to the Conservative Party of Canada convention. And after that, I might try to take Drew Barnes's nomination for the UCP that he
interesting
dropped. Yeah.
So you're one to watch then.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I have, like many other people, probably during this campaign, have gotten to learn way more about what's out there, what services are available. And, it's really opened my eyes to the other ways that I can contribute to the city. And, you know, especially, you know, that like even just contributing to the discourse, like how we communicate with each other. And then of course, the mental health crisis and substance use, like just making sure, and homelessness, making sure that everyone in our community feels valued, would be something that I want to continue on with. And I actually feel like, you know, I do agree that there's more that we could do in terms of recreation, but I feel like we have amazing resources right now too. And maybe we just need to make a little better use of them. Like we have a beautiful exhibition in Stampede grounds, and we have Echodale and numerous beautiful parks. And of course, there's some conflict right now about what we're going to do about our neighborhood facilities. But I truly value the fact that we have loads of neighborhood recreation facilities. So also just like kind of being an ambassador for our city and what we have. I want to make sure that I give you guys time to shout out your websites and socials if you have just a few last words, and make sure you tell us where we can find you. Allison.
Okay, so my website is www.knodel.city rather than .com. And then every platform is, I'm focusing on Facebook and Instagram, so just knodel.city. But if you just search my name, it will be connected to my accounts as well. Yeah, I'll write them in the chat.
Smart.
Paul.
I will also just put my email address in the chat here before I go. It is paulhemsingforcouncil@gmail.com. I am the type of person that I love talking to people, so I would rather take an email than create a web page. So I have not done so. I do have Facebook, Paul Hemsing for Council as well. And that's how you can reach me.
Nicholas.
nicholasmartin.ca. Everything you need, you'll find on that website. I also joined Twitter for this campaign. I've never been on Twitter before. It's quite fun. I like it.
Tweeting.
That's in the chat too.
Good times.
Thank you,
So
Lindsay.
Paul, did you get your email in there yet?
I'm just gonna type it in there.
Okay. So you can find me at clarkformayor.ca.
No E.
Pardon?
No E.
No E in Clark. Oh yeah, that's valuable info.
Important.
I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out and join us for this chat. And you may not know this, but voting has already started, and it will be continuing from Tuesday till Saturday next week, or is it this week, I guess now? And on Monday, Election Day, Monday, October 18th. So don't forget to vote. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Lindsay.
Thank you for
Bye.
coming.